In order to educate the children properly, we must separate them from their families. Some people may say that this is hard, but if we want to civilize them, we must do that. A federal cabinet minister, 1883.
My name is Alice Little Deer. I'm 78 years old. I spent about 8 years in residential school. I got frightened when I was a little girl when the principal used to beat up the other children, like boys. The boys got the most beating. They used to call it bench party, and it was usually done after supper. And that's where I got frightened, because I saw blood. My strongest memory there is when the little girl died beside me. She must have been about 6. I was scared why the parents were not there. That's what I was scared about. And I knew they wouldn't feel comfortable for not being there when their daughter is dying.
And do you know why they weren't there?
They were never notified.
This 1962 documentary attempted to show the Kamloops Residential School in a positive light, but survivors later told of the psychological and physical torment, including punishment such as being hit with a strap for speaking their own language. Indigenous leaders say the finding is more evidence of a painful history.
Well, I've been here since knee-high, and I enjoy it around here. I consider it home, a second home. Oh, sometimes I find it rather, a bit lonely, because you're so used to, the big crowd and all the noise that, when the kids leave, you kind of have to get used to, the loneliness. After grade 12, I wanted to go in for training to be a nurse. Registered nurse. Oh, Veronica. Golly. Veronica, she's also wanted to go into the religious life. She usually talks about it to me, and I encourage her on, of course. Well, I guess when she started, seeing the works that the sisters were doing for us, and what a good job they were doing with us, I guess she wanted to be one herself.
How far along do you want to go in school?
Up to grade 12.
And then what do you think you'd like to do?
And then I'll try to learn to be a sister. I sure like to be a sister, but I don't know if I'll make it.
Why do you feel you'd like to be a sister?
Well, so I could help the people in the world and teach them about God and all.
My name is Raymond Mason. I'm 62 years old, and I attended residential school for 12 years. I remember when we had to shower. you only have to show me how to shower and clean and wash myself, how to wash my private and my, private parts of your body. You don't have to show a kid once or twice at the most, but not every day. And have the supervisor come in there and basically take advantage of you, And I can remember the principal grabbing to hold me by the hand, and I was jumping off the floor like that, and he stripped me. And he started whacking me with a long webbed strap. He was setting an example that, if you do this is what's going to happen to you. And all the other boys are watching, and the girls are still going through,
I'm Madeline Dion Stout. I'm 62 years old. I'm from the Tk'emlups First Nation in Alberta. I attended Blue Quills Residential School for 36 consecutive months. That would be 3 years. I just remember arriving there and donning new clothes and, of course, getting a haircut and sitting in a classroom and being with other girls and witnessing my brother get punched by the supervisor.
Indian children in the residential schools die at a much higher rate than in their villages. But this does not justify a change in the policy of this department, which is geared towards a final solution of our Indian problem. Duncan Campbell Scott, Deputy Superintendent of Indian Affairs. Our objective is to continue until there is not a single Indian in Canada that has not been absorbed into the body politic, and there is no Indian question and no Indian department. Duncan Campbell Scott, Deputy Superintendent of Indian Affairs, January 1st, 1920.
Canada's Truth and Reconciliation Commission found thousands of children at residential schools were unaccounted for over several decades. Today's discovery may be related to those long considered missing.
The remains of 215 children were found at a former residential school in British Columbia. The Kamloops Indian Residential School was one of the largest residential schools in Canada. The horrific discovery was made with the help of a ground-penetrating radar specialist. In a news release, Chief Roseanne Casimir of the Tk'emlups to Secwépemc First Nation said the remains were found last week. She called the discovery an unthinkable loss, but one that was never documented. A local archivist is working with the Royal Museum of BC to try and find records of death. They're reaching out to other communities whose children attended the school in hopes to bring peace and closure.
There's a portion of their property near the banks of the South Thompson River that they've got closed off. That's where the suspected mass grave site is. If this turns out to be what they think it is, this is going to be a staggering and heartbreaking moment in Canadian history.
The Kamloops Residential School was run by the Catholic Church. It operated from 1890 until 1977. Among the First Nations children from across BC's interior who were forcibly brought here, there were rumors of deaths and burials in unmarked graves. Now, the Tk'emlups First Nation says they've found proof.
We do know that they've had members who shared the stories of, cousins and relations and siblings who have been missing. And, the common theme that they've all heard was that their sibling, their sister, their brother, their consultant had run away. With that find, we know that these children did not run away.
Tk'emlups Chief Roseanne Casimir says a search of the school property with ground-penetrating radar has revealed the presence of at least 215 bodies. From the imagery obtained, they suspect many are small children.
It was very horrifying to learn that we've found 215 remains of children within our grounds. We were going through grief and loss here, knowing that these were children.
Who were the children? How did they die? What were their stories? All of that is unknown at this point. But the stunning news has already touched the greater Kamloops First Nation community, many of whom gathered at a site near the school Friday to share their grief.
This is a piece of history that is a devastating injustice to our people.
Gerald Etienne was a student at the school for 5 years. He also heard the chilling rumors.
There's a story of another gravesite beside the gym over here in that parking lot. There's supposed to be, there were stories of gravesites there. I don't know how many, but you know, those kind of things were told and came to my ears.
Now they wait for confirmation, uncertain how they'll face it and how all of Canada will.
The chief is telling us they plan to have an initial report out here in a matter of just a few weeks. In the meantime, they're in the process of reaching out to the RCMP and the BC Coroner Service.
The remains are many, many years old, decades.
Few details were released today, but Chief Roseanne Casimir says remains of 215 individuals were located.
It's a reality, and it's something that we do not want to have, under the carpet in any shape or form. We want to, heal with our people.
Discovery has, shaken our Indigenous communities to the very core.
The news prompted a minute's silence in the House of Commons.
The residential school system was a national program. It was a national institution right across Canada. So if this happened at Kamloops, you can be rest assured it happened in a lot of the other residential schools.
You know, it happened right here. We need that support and we appreciate that support. You know, when we think and put ourselves into the shoes of the parents, you know, and the families that have been impacted by the find, we know that it is spread right throughout Canada, and we know that, you know, these are undocumented and unconfirmed, and, you know, unconfirmed as identity.
Their education must consist not merely training of the mind, but of a weaning from the habits and feelings of their ancestors, and the acquirements of the language, art, and customs of civilized life. Edgerton Ryerson, 1847 Report for Indian Affairs. Indian culture is a contradiction in terms. They are uncivilized. The aim of education is to destroy the Indian. Nicholas Flood David Report, 1879. The great aim of our legislation has been to do away with the tribal system and to assimilate the Indian people in all respects. Sir John A. Macdonald, May 2nd, 1887.
An impromptu memorial to remember those who suffered at the schools.
It's triggering because, like everybody says, it could have been our life.
The RCMP, BC's Coroner Service, and the federal government have been notified, and talks are underway about what will happen next.